welcome to the Views Expressed. We are public affairs television out of WACA in Ashland, discussing local issues and Ashland and beyond. Today, we have a very special guest, Tamisha Civil. She is running for Governor's Council District 2. Ms. Civil, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Nikita. It's a pleasure to be here with the community of Ashland.
Fantastic. Well, we've got a list of questions for you that we'd like to find out a little bit more about you while you're running, what Governor's Council is. We've got a whole bunch of them. So without any further ado, I'm going to get started. But first, a little bit about your personal background, Ms. Civil. Who are you?
Well, it's Tamisha Civil. I'm a mom. I'm an advocate for the community. I have a master's degree from Northeastern University for criminal justice and leadership. I currently work as an associate probation officer out of the trial court of Massachusetts. I've had experience working for the trial court within the last 10 years. My job right now is to help people who have offended re-enter into society by providing them and supervising them to treatment programs for substance abuse, mental health. I'm also a legal advocate for a domestic violence shelter, and I've also worked for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. I worked as an advocate navigating victims throughout the community that have been impacted by crime. And I worked in the major felony unit. And I've been serving my community in that capacity, working in the trial court. And I'm here to serve, and I'm running for Governor's Council. And I'm also an Eastern Region Commissioner for the status of women and girls. And, that's a nutshell about me, but I love to serve. And, I've had experience working in juvenile court, mental health court, substance abuse court, which is also known as a drug court. I refer veterans to veterans court so that we can preserve their records. And I've worked with seniors to make sure that they're not being exploited financially by loved ones or family members or power of attorneys who have taken control of their finances.
Well, you definitely seem to have quite a bit of experience with criminal justice. But before we get any further into this interview, perhaps it would be helpful for our viewers if you were to explain exactly what Governor's Council is and what they do, and then specifically why you're running for this particular office.
Well, Governor Councils, what they do is they nominate judges, parole board members. They listen to commutation, pardons. They nominate other public administrators, such as notary publics, industrial act board members, justice of the peace. They do a variety of things, but what they are mainly known for is nominating judges and providing advice to the lieutenant and the governor when it comes to the judicial system.
So why are you specifically running for Governor's Council?
Well, I'm running for Governor's Council. One, I have the experience working in the trial court for the last 10 years, and I understand the impacts, and I understand what people go through when they go to court. I work with judges 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. And I can tell you, I can see the good ones and I can see the bad ones. And judges have an immense amount of power. So they can turn your life to good, and they also can turn your life upside down. And that's speaking from personal experience. But my professional experience is that I work with people from all walks of life in court. When judges put them on probation, it is my job to supervise them, to not only make sure that they're contributing members into society, but making sure that the condition that the judge have provided them to do, that they successfully complete it. We know that substance abuse is a disease. We need to make sure that judges that sits on the bench understand that, and that we need to be putting people into treatment programs instead of incarceration. Because I can tell you now, a lot of my clients, they tell me, Tamisha, if I go to jail now, I'll just come out worse. So we know that incarceration is not the answer. What the answer is to make sure that judges understand what people are going through in the community. We need to make sure that judges understand that substance abuse is a disease and we need treatment programs. And we need to be able to make sure that judges have a relationship with these organizations that provide those kind of treatment to make sure that when someone goes into there for treatment, that they are successful and that they can battle this disease that they're going through. And personally, I have a cousin of mine who spent 27 years in jail for a crime he did not commit in the city of Boston. And in 2021, he was exonerated from all his charges. So with my professional experience and working with people from all walks of life, I turned my family's experience into a positive by giving back and working with people that have been incarcerated, but to make sure that families who are impacted by the criminal justice system or legal system, that they have the support they need, but that this kind of incident doesn't happen to anyone, regardless of whatever reason that they're going into the judicial system for. And we want to make sure that we have fair and impartial judges. And because I work with them, because I know how they think and their temperament, and I also work with clerk magistrates, police officers, defense attorneys, and clerk magistrates. Those are the people that make the court go around, and I have a personal relationship because all these people make the courtroom. And I have that experience working with them as well as judges. So this would make me a great candidate. And not only that I'm qualified, but I have the education and I have the experience to make me the best person to be on the council. And for 244 years, there's never been a person of color to represent the council or the council in general. And if we want to bring diversity into the council to make sure that everybody's voices are heard and that everybody's rights are not impacted, we want to make sure that we have a diverse council to make sure that we are represented the way that we should.
Ms. Civil, I want to thank you for giving us a little bit about your background. I wanted to zoom in on the Governor's Council itself. So you mentioned it's been in existence for 244 years. Over 244 years. Massachusetts is very unique. Governor's councils do not exist in many of the states at all. And I think for some of our viewers, they're very familiar with several editorials that have run in the Boston Globe and other local media establishments questioning the utility. Like, why do we need to have a governor's council? And because other states don't do it. Some folks think it's kind of serves a redundant purpose. Some folks honestly feel like it's a rubber stamp on a governor's decision or around judges and such. I'd love to get your viewpoint on that particular take.
My viewpoint is that this council is important. If we want to have transparency, if we want to be fair, the council is set up of 8 districts, and it's 8 councils representing the state of Massachusetts. And if we want to make sure that we have the right judge to sit on the bench, we need people to be on that council and to vet those judicial nominees seeking to serve the people in the community. So for me, I think it is vital. I think the council is important, but we want to make sure that we get the right people with the right experience and the understanding that it's a people's court, and that we get the right judges on the bench that are aligned with the principles that is reflecting the community.
So your position on Governor's Council is that it serves that purpose?
In my opinion, it serves that purpose.
Okay. Before, you were talking about a lot of reasons why you want to serve, and you talked about the issue of addiction quite a bit. That sounds like that's one of your top policy issues. I'd like you to go a little bit more into depth why you think this is something that, as in your capacity on Governor's Council, you can impact policy on and perception on in the court system. but I'm also curious about, you named some other policy issues too. I'd like to get your top two policy issues as you see them, serving on governor's council. What would you want to be most active in?
Well, I have an agenda, and what I would like to see through these judicial nominees is that one, they understand what these issues are and what have they contributed throughout their careers in working with organization, and to make sure that they're educated in these issues. And I have three: restorative justice, and the second would be mental health and substance abuse, and the third would be domestic violence.
Can you, I'm sorry, Ms. Civil. I wonder if many of our viewers know what restorative justice is. That's a phrase that's kind of thrown around a lot, and I think there's some not a lot of clarity on what that really is. Could you explain that?
Absolutely. So we want to make sure we want to make sure we have judges that understand to address the root cause of the criminal and the over incarceration that is happening. So according to Harvard, the most populated people in prison are Black and Latinos. We know that. So restorative justice kind of gives you an overview on how there is implicit bias, how the Black and brown folks don't get the same treatment as their counterparts. They don't get fair treatment. They get over incarcerated. They get overcharged. So by educating people of restorative justice, we want to make sure that it's fair and it's just for everyone, and that it's not being. We want to make sure that everyone is getting the justice that they need.
I'm sorry, Ms. Civil. When you say over incarcerated and overcharged, what do you mean by that? Could you just provide some clarity around that?
Absolutely. So when you go to court, the assistant district attorney will ask the judge for say a sentence on a crime that someone has committed. Black and brown folks often sometimes get punished more than their counterpart, which would be Caucasian. For example, the war on drugs. We have marijuana. It has affected a lot of people from getting jobs, and the most population that has been affected by it is the brown and Black folks, and those are the people that I supervise in court. They come to me and I require them to get a job. They say I can't because I have an offense in my record that won't allow me to. So there's a diversion. Some people get diversion programs so that their records could be preserved, or there's some that pay a higher cost for a penalty for having that on their record. So when I say that, that's what I mean. And then when you have domestic violence, women need to be heard. When they come in and they ask for a restraining order, judges need to understand what that means. It means they need protection. And domestic violence have been rapid in our communities, where women are being impacted by a domestic partner or family member that they live with. And we want to make sure that women are being heard at the first time they come into court. And I want to make sure that judges understand the totality of domestic violence and assault and battery charges that someone picks up against another person. And I work as a legal advocate for a domestic violence homeless shelter. And I cannot tell you how many women that come to me and they have to start over, they have to live their life over because they have to leave a partner that is abusing them. And sometimes when they seek assistance in court, they don't always get it. So we want to make sure that judges understand the impacts of domestic violence and the impacts that it has on a woman mentally, emotionally, and physically. And I work with clients all day that are impacted by substance abuse and mental health. Mm-hmm. Incarceration is not the key. Some judges, they may incarcerate someone so that they can sober up, thinking that it's okay. But the point is that we want to make sure there's an alternative, and judges are aware of that, and that's providing them a treatment program for them to go into in order to get the help that they need.
Ms. Civil, I want to circle back to something that you said around domestic abuse piece, and you said you want the judges to understand the totality of the charges around that particular person. Could you explain, like, is there a situation where a judge would not be privy to previous charges? I'm just trying to get some clarity on what that means for
So,
domestic abuse situations.
so the women that I have helped, I educate them on a restraining order and what the restraining order is for. So some women, say, for example, if they come into this country by a person that they're with or married, they are afraid to get a restraining order because of their legal status. And, there is a piece that judges need to understand to educate other women who comes in, that when you come for a restraining order, a judge doesn't care about where you're from or what your legal status is. Your job is to protect them. There's another reason. When women come from restraining orders, a courtroom is a public place. So a woman may not articulate exactly how she is feeling due to embarrassment or what other people might say. So it may not come clear. And you have to have clear evidence of a person abusing you. So there are multiple ways a woman can ask for a restraining order, or a man, but if it doesn't articulate up to the statute, then I feel like the judge can find other ways to make sure that they understand the seriousness of the plea of the person that is requesting for the restraining order.
I see. Well, thank you for that clarification. And then you talked about substance abuse as well. And I guess I'm not clear on what precisely from a policy standpoint can be done around substance abuse, in that disease when, folks commit a crime or a crime is committed. On Governor's Council, are there specific remedies that you would suggest around this, or is it really more of a focus in on the issue and to figure out what some of the best practices around policy would be around that issue?
So Governor's Council don't deal with policies. Mm-hmm. We simply nominate judges that want to sit on the trial court of Massachusetts. But what we do want to do is there's a vetting process, and we want to make sure that the judge that we're vetting, that wants to be a judge, understands the impacts and what happens in a community when someone is impacted by substance abuse and someone who is battling that disease and need help. Oftentimes, some judges may not have an educated understanding of substance abuse and may choose incarceration because you can tell on a person's record if they're picking up larceny charges in to me, I can see that this person has an addiction, they're stealing, and they're feeding their addiction by picking up some crimes that are on their record. Now, when someone gets arrested, the judge has the discretion to ask questions. Why are you picking all these charges? Are you fueling it with because you have an addiction? What is the problem? So judges have discretion, but you can read through the signs and you can read through a person's criminal record to see what is fueling these kinds of criminal activities. Now, if someone is doing these things, what do? Do you put them in jail so that they can just, when they come out, to get worse? Or are you going to put them in a treatment to battle this disease that they have so that they won't reoffend again? Because if you don't have treatment, you don't have a solution.
Well, thanks for clarifying that, because I think, again, I think the Governor's Council is, something that people sort of circle the dot in whenever there's an election, but don't really understand what role the governor's council plays in judge selection, or through that, that is an execution of policy basically. But like who these judges are and how they operate is basically key to one of your key responsibilities on governor's council. So I think that's important for folks to understand. So thanks for clarifying that. We are getting very close to the end of our conversation. So there are a couple of more questions that I have for you. You talked earlier about some of your qualifications, but specifically, and some of your experience. But specifically, out of your qualifications that you've stated and the experience that you've stated, what makes you uniquely qualified to serve on governor's council, as opposed to maybe other folks who may have run for the position in the past or may be currently running?
Well, a lot of people, like you stated, doesn't know anything about the governor's council. And as long as you have an understanding of the criminal and legal system, you can be part of the councils. There are different types of counselors that have different backgrounds. There's school committee members, there's mental health professionals. But for me, because I work with judges on a daily basis, and I've been working in the trial court for the last 10 years, I'm able to see the judges that come in and go. And I'm able to see how they think. I'm able to see their temperament. I'm able to work with them and see what they like and what they don't like. And I see first and foremost how they sentence people, whether it's in jail or whether it's giving probation. And probation has a vital part into this, because when the assistant district attorney is writing up a sentence, the assistant district attorney writes what they're proposing, the defense attorney is writing what they're proposing, and then probation needs to sign off on the green sheet, they would call it, to make sure that this person is a candidate to be on probation, and if this person can complete what the judge is looking for them to do. And it is important that we have someone not only be on the council with a diverse perspective, but also working with a lot of different people that make the courtroom go round, and also having experience working in different court systems and court divisions. I worked for the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office, and I worked in the major felony unit, where all types of crime, major crimes comes in. I work with victims. I'm a legal advocate for a domestic violence homeless shelter. So I know what it means when women are impacted by domestic violence and homelessness. And I help people re-enter into society that has been impacted in many different ways and encounter the criminal justice system, entering them back into the community safely, making sure that they have the resources and access that we need. So I understand that the trial court is a people's court. And it's not only about criminal. We know judges listen to all types of cases. They listen to civil cases. They listen to divorces. But for me, what stands me out is that I have an understanding how the court operates, because I'm in the courtroom day in and day out. And I've worked with wonderful judges. And because of my experience and because of my knowledge and my education, and personally, people want to know that you personally relate to them and you understand what an average person goes to when you go into court. It could be very intimidating going into court, whether it's your first time or whether it's your second or third time. It can be very intimidating, but my job is for me to make sure that judges are fair and impartial, and that anyone who encounters the courtroom, that they are being heard and they are being justly served. And I speak another language fluently, so we know how important it is to make sure that we have interpreters in the courtroom to service people that come in that need the help. So we want to make sure that no one is left behind when they come in the judicial system, but we also want to make sure that our judges understand what it means to protect LGBTQ rights. We want to make sure that judges understand that substance abuse is a disease. We want to make sure that judges have used their discretion to help people instead of incarcerating them. We want to just make sure that everyone is felt welcome and being heard when they go into the courtroom.
Well, Ms. Civil, you've given a pretty full picture of yourself. And by the way, you said you speak another language. What language is that?
I speak Haitian Creole.
Okay. So in talking about the importance of bilingual services for folks in court as well, we are coming up literally on the last couple of minutes here on the Views Expressed. I just want to know if there's anything else you'd like voters to consider as they're making their decision for Governor's Council, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, first of all, Makita, I would like to say thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. And I would like to thank the community of Ashland for those who are tuning in and watching this interview. And I would ask you that you vote for me September 3rd, the primary. And I would ask that you support me because I'm running a grassroots campaign. You can find and learn more about all my endorsements, and you can read about my accomplishments. You can visit www.tamishacivil.com. And I bring a diverse perspective to the council because for 244 years, there's never been any representation of a person of color, a person who is highly educated, a person who has experience working with the community and knows that it's a people's court and that everyone deserves to be heard and to be fairly justified when they come into the court, and that they deserve a judge who is fair and impartial, that listens to cases, that understands the cases that they are reviewing, and that they make sure that they're using discretion when discretion is needed, and to make sure that we do not leave anyone who is impacted by substance abuse get the treatment that they need. And with my experience working with various different divisions in the court, veterans court, senior, working with our seniors from financial exploitation, juvenile substance abuse court, and mental health court, and especially our veterans. We want to make sure that we value their presence, and for them serving our community and our country, we want to preserve their record and provide them the great resources that they deserve to be contributing members back to society when they leave their post.
Tamisha Civil, thank you so much for joining us on the Views Expressed. You've given your contact information. We'll be able to put that up on screen hopefully as well. But again, thank you so much for speaking with us. And once again, when is the date of the election?
September 3rd.
September 3rd. Ashland, go out, make your voice be heard, and vote. For all of us here at WACA Ashland and the Views Expressed, thank you so much for tuning in. And again, thank you, Ms. Civil, for joining us today.
For having me. Thank you.